So I have rewatched Game of Thrones, and the last time that I watched it is 7 to 8 years ago, and it was just until the 5th season. Back then I got very excited about it. Whenever a new episode came out, I sat on the couch filled with excitement and joy. When the theme played, I often got literal goosebumps. When I watched it this time, I didn't get as excited, and maybe it's because the older you get, the less excited you are, or that I knew how the series ends. But there are things that I have watched several times already that get me way more excited. I'm sure you've heard that Game of Thrones fell apart in the later seasons, especially in season 8, and that is all that people talk about. And that is definitely true, but there are thousands of videos about this already on YouTube, so I would not add any value to this discussion. Maybe I will make a rant just for fun. Today I want to talk about the things that I think are already bad in the earlier seasons and left me less excited, and in my opinion would have left Game of Thrones behind other series or movies even if the later seasons would be executed well. First of all, how characters are portrayed. And here we have to take a step back. George R.R. Martin said he has watched The Lord of the Rings and wanted to do something similar but different. And I think it is well known that Lord of the Rings portrays good versus evil and Game of Thrones portrays moral is grey, that there is not such thing as good or evil. I personally think that the story arc for Daenerys, that she goes mad at the end, should show the arc from a good person to an evil person, and was so intended by George. And on the other side you have Jaime Lannister, who starts as an evil person and becomes a good one. We all know that it ended miserably. Those arcs completely fell apart and were shown in a bad manner. But what I want to talk about now is how they were portrayed in the first 5 seasons. And first we have Jaime Lannister, who has sex with his sister and throws Bran, who is a kid, down a tower to kill him. He's constantly called the Kingslayer in a negative way, and he is very cocky all the time. From the start on, he is portrayed as a bad person, and soon many of these things change, as he has redeeming acts, but are these enough? When I watched it for the first time when I was younger and dumber, from the point on where he got his hand cut off and sacrificed himself for someone else, I was on the boat. But now it is way harder for me to forget the bad light in which he was portrayed by the series. I think they went too hard on him for me to really forgive him, and I don't think Jaime suffered from this the most. Daenerys had it way worse. At the start of the series, Daenerys is shown as an innocent girl that is pushed around by her brother, who wants to use her to become the king of Westeros. Over the first episodes you see how she becomes from an innocent girl to a strong woman that takes her life in her own hands. That is the part about her that I really like, but everything that happens thereafter makes me dislike her. The first person that really is killed in her name in front of her is her brother. She doesn't bother with it, and we do not judge her because her brother is portrayed in a bad light, and he definitely is a terrible and power-hungry person. Then the first person that is executed by her is a slave owner and slave trader that cuts off the nipples of slaves to show off, forces the slaves to kill babies, pays 1 silver to the mother of that baby, and is extremely disrespectful to Daenerys. Again, we do not judge her, as he is a terrible person. The same happens with the Dothraki cults. They all want to do the worst thing imaginable for a woman to her, and she kills them. No one cares. By now you may know where this is leading. Daenerys is artificially portrayed in a positive light, which makes her more likable, but also more like a caricature of a good and moral person than a real person. And I know that series and movies make this intentionally, but the more often you do it blatantly, the faster people will see this. But this is not where it ends. She frees the slaves, which is 100% the right thing to do, but the consequences for her moral decisions are always very minor. The masters fight back and want to overthrow Daenerys and her proponents, but that's it. Imagine most of the population were slaves and had to work all day long. Your whole economy and survival depends on those people. When they now don't have to do the things they were forced to do, who does it? Where's the famine? Where are the revolts of all the people? I think most people kind of feel like this is somehow wrong, but can't grasp it. Like me when I was watching it the first time. And for me, the worst example is how she seals away 2 dragons after one has killed a child. You do not even know how long they were sealed away. Could be days, months, or years. But after they are freed, they just listen to her and do everything for her without any hesitation. I really feel like they went too light on her, which made her very unlikable to me. And I think that is already evidence for what will happen later in the series. The nuance seems to be one of the things the writers were lacking. At the moment they had no books to work with anymore, everything went downhill from there. The second thing I want to talk about is the amount of characters. Many of the producers and writers thought that one of the great aspects of Game of Thrones is the amount of characters they have tried to adapt it and failed miserably. For example, The Witcher and The Rings of Power, just to name a few. I think many people like the idea because with a higher amount of characters, you have more chances to portray more groups of people in a series, which actually is a good thing. But you really need one very good writer who puts in thousands of hours of work to pull that off. In the early seasons, it's well made. Many of the characters share scenes together, so you have enough time to grow attached to them and learn who they are. But when you had all the Starks separate, it already became a bit clunky. We all have our few preferred characters in Game of Thrones, and there are other plot lines you may not care about that are not part of the larger plot you have to watch. In the end, it was one of the things that broke the writers' necks. How do you have so many characters with open plot lines and still have an interesting end? You need to end one plot line after another until you only have the most important characters left that are all involved with another at the end. Arya is a great example. She had no involvement with the White Stalkers and is kept in the series to be involved with the plot, while hers is already finished. And it doesn't matter if you like her and her plot or not, it just shows the flawed creative decision. Now another thing I want to talk about is the nudity. I guess this is a very individual thing if you liked it, disliked it, or didn't care about it. But I think nudity is such an unnecessary thing within this series. I didn't care when I was younger, but it somehow bothers me now because it feels like a cheap way to evoke emotions in the person that watches the series. It is one of the two cheapest ways to evoke emotions. The other one is shock. I've heard people say in this context that sex sells, but this is only true for an impulse decision like a thumbnail, a game ad, or for rich people cars. I think most people watch Game of Thrones because they want to watch a great fantasy series, as there are a lot of people that like those series, and high quality ones are rather rare. And in my opinion, only a very low percentage comes for the nudity. That's all that I've got for today. Thank you for watching. If you want to help me out, please share, like, subscribe. I hope you have a nice day and we see us in the next one.